Coming up to 22 minutes before 12 o'clock, and the government's announced a review of the amount of time off and pay that new parents can get after the birth of a child. Ministers said they wanted to modernise the system across paternity, maternity and shared parental leave, which campaigners have said has been overlooked for years. It comes after last month's protest in London and Edinburgh, which saw hundreds of fathers demanding better paternity leave. So we thought for today's sound advice, we would talk through what the current rules are and what the proposed changes are, and how this could potentially change the way we look after our children. Well, I'm joined now by Paul Britton, who's the founder of the law firm Britton and Time, based in Brighton and London. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you for having me. Am I coming through clearly?
You are coming through very clearly, Paul.
Good.
Now, first of all, I suppose traditionally we still think of maternity leave. If a new baby appears, it will be largely the woman that takes the time off work. Is that still the case today at the moment, or are things already beginning to change?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the default position, isn't it? And I think traditionally that's because arguably the woman has done all the hard work. She's just been through 9 months of pregnancy and labour, and therefore under the current programme, under the current regime and law, she's entitled to 52 weeks maternity leave. 26 of those weeks we call ordinary maternity leave, and then there's an additional 26 weeks. And then there's the pay benefit that comes with that, because a mother shouldn't be at a detriment just because they've just recently had a child. So we have statutory maternity pay, which pays up to 39 weeks pay post the birth of that new child. And then when you throw into the mix a number of other things that you can have, which is a paternity leave and shared paternity leave, you can have parental leave that's unpaid. There's all an adoption leave. I mean, it applies as well to adopt a child. You don't have to have just gone through that labour and pregnancy. It applies to people that are adopting as well. It doesn't really reflect on foster parents, though. They're a separate regime, but everybody else is covered under the current legislation.
So I'm presuming that it doesn't mean that if you're in a couple, you're both bringing a baby into the world, that both of you can get the leave. I'm assuming one or the other one has to choose to take that leave.
Well, that comes under what we called shared parental leave, or SPL, and that allows parents to share up to 50 weeks of leave, and 37 weeks of those leave weeks can be paid. I should say that employers aren't shackled or bound by these by the current legislation. So if an employer wants to give enhanced paternity leave or maternity leave, or even pay post birth, then an employer can do that. And quite often we do see very generous employment contracts where an employer will pay up to 9 months and sometimes 12 months full pay for the entire maternity period.
It's interesting, isn't it? I had a conversation not so long ago. We were talking about the Waspy Women Pensions campaign, and a couple of people phoned in and they said that when they had their children, they couldn't even... They didn't even have, they were encouraged not to come back to work. There were no rights at all whatsoever. And it's astonishing that relatively recently that was the case. But it still seems as if it's taken quite some time to get to a point of complete equality.
Well, I mean, there's you have to, when you scratch a little bit deeper on the whole parental leave and maternity leave and all that sort of stuff, some would say it's the government or society shifting the burden onto private enterprise like employers. So that's one of the cynical backgrounds of it. But what others would say is that in a civilized society, a wealthy society like ours, we are one of the most wealthy countries on this planet, we should be supporting family units and parents who decide to procreate and create the next generation. And it's incumbent on all of us to shoulder that burden, as it were. One of the rights that they're thinking about introducing is the unpaid parental leave and the paternity leave from day one as a day one right. Because at the moment, in some cases, you have to have worked for 26 weeks. And dare I say, in some other cases, you have to have worked for a year. So it's kind of they're trying to bring it in from that day one right as well. So it is a top-down review of this.
Now, in terms of some of the things, the reaction to this. So Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffiths has said, if you haven't got a job in the first place, it doesn't matter how much family leave you get. And his suggestion is that you put all this responsibility on companies, and that inevitably means that you don't get the employment because they simply cannot cope with providing all of that.
Yes, well, I mean, that's a very obvious point to make. If you're not in employment, then obviously you can't claim these leaves from your employer. I mean, there'll be other benefits under the current welfare state. I don't know what those are.
Well, no, I suppose what he's really saying though is he's sort of suggesting it's gone too far, and he's saying you put more rights to workers. And that means that it becomes very difficult for the businesses to actually maintain this and make the sums up themselves.
You know, I mean, he is right. It's yet another cost on business and enterprise in this country. And what it does make people think about whether or not they want to open a business in this country. We already benefit as employees from probably the most generous packages available, definitely in Europe, for people that are having children and creating the next generation. So he is right. And when you couple that with other factors like the national insurance increases and the corporation tax increases, it does beg the question, how much can private enterprise afford to pay? And that is a different question from whether or not it's right or wrong that we have these benefits in place and this support in place. That's very different to how much more can private businesses shoulder in terms of financial responsibility for actually what is a personal decision to have children.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you must see it, you know, as a solicitor, you see that as employees, we want the most we can get. We want to be paid the most. We want the best advantages, the benefits, and of course, businesses they want to keep their profits up. So you're always going to be at odds.
But it can be so short-sighted, can't it? Because if you suck all of the money out of your employer, then how are they going to spend money on things like training and development of career professionals, people who genuinely want to be in business and progress, and those who believe in social mobility, starting at the very bottom in an admin job and working their way up to a CEO of a company, which is, some people say, oh, well, that doesn't happen anymore. No, that does happen for the people that want it. But if private enterprise doesn't have the money available to support you, there's just so many mouths to feed.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, one of the other things that's also, because I've been looking at all the reaction to this, and the chief executive of Pregnant Then Screwed said, if you improve parental leave, you would help close the gender pay gap. And it's interesting that in this day and age, there is still a gender pay gap, and that's again something that you, when you're dealing in employment cases, must see.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism over the gender pay gap. Arguably, women have only really wanted to be in business or have been appearing more in business for the past 2 or 3 decades. So there was always going to be an element of catch up there anyway. If you compare like for like roles, so if you had a corporate solicitor with 5 years post-qualified experience, and one was male, one was female, and there was a disparity between their salaries, then that's outrageous. That is a good comparison to make. But what you can't do is take all of the women's salaries, add them up, all of the men's salaries, add them up, divide them by the number you've got and say, well, look at the difference, because that's just not a good way of doing it. It has to be a like for like.
I'll tell you what, though, just you having you on the show, it highlights the issues that are faced here, because Sean the cabbie's got in touch, says, how about single people's rights? Shouldn't we be given extra time off to equate with the myriad of time and extras given to parents? Otherwise, doesn't it amount to discrimination? So that's it, isn't it? You please one member of the workforce and you upset somebody else.
Well, if he's single and he has a child, I mean, if he adopts, he will benefit from the new legal framework. He will benefit financially. But does this not highlight that it is an individual personal decision? And it's not your employer didn't say go and get pregnant. You made that decision, and then you turn to your employer and say, right now you must pay me.
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Quite a topic for debate. Paul, thank you. It's always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme. Talking about the increase in parental rights and how men could well be taking paternity leave in addition to women taking maternity leave. But there's been mixed reactions to that. Some people really welcome it and say it's brilliant and it means that there'll be more of a move towards equality. Others are suggesting that it's too much pressure on businesses.